Okay, so once again, welcome to Purpose of this Book. And I'm David, but other David is going to do a little recap of where we are before we get into new content tonight.
My name is David. I'm a recovered alcoholic and a drug addict, and welcome everyone to our big book study tonight. And we are in the fifth step, so we're on page 75, and we're going to start. David will start the reading tonight on page 75, third full paragraph. But we just got done talking about the fifth step promises, which, as we know, the big book is covered with a lot of promises throughout the book. These are not only they use the word like we can look the world in the eye, so they're eye opening. These things. This is about an intimate relationship. This is about consciousness of a presence of God in our life. This is like a new avenue, a new awakening on this path, this journey that I'm on right now. So if you don't mind, let's go back to in that paragraph on page 75 in the second paragraph as we're talking about the promises. And we're talking about we pocket our pride and we go to it. So what are we doing here? We're illuminating every twist of character. So we're shining a light on the path to find out in the fourth column what our defects of character are, so we know what we're going to take to God. Now, we're not going to remove these defects of character, these shortcomings. We don't have the power to do that, but we have to be aware of them, and we have to be willing to let go of them or not to cling to them, as they'll point out to us on page 76. And if we do cling to something, then we pray for the willingness that God make us willing. So these things I find fascinating because this is about connecting some dots in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I read, we pocket our pride, we go to it, illuminating every character, twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. So I'm only as sick as my darkest secret. And once we have taken this step, we're holding nothing. So one of the things that I ask my sponsees at the very end, or the spiritual guiding that I may do with someone and taking them through the step, is there anything that you left off that you didn't tell me about? And then when they look at me, that pause and go, that's it, that thing right there that you didn't tell me about, that look in your eye, I can see it. Was there something you didn't tell me? Very vital, absolutely important. Again, I'm only as sick as my darkest secret. I asked that question, and I asked them to consider what was being brought up here, because I've got to get close to God. And if I'm holding something back, if I'm not telling the truth about something, I need to share it with someone. But you pick me, so let's be honest about this thing. These promises will come true if I am honest and thorough about them things. It says that it says we are once we have taken the step of holding nothing. Again, with my question to the sponsee, we are delighted for our first promise. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel nearness of our Creator. So let's go back in the big book a little bit, because what we've done here is, if we go back to page 55 in the fourth paragraph, if you hold your page there on 75 and go back to 55 in the fourth paragraph, if you would please. 55, fourth paragraph. It says, we can only clear the ground a bit, for if our testimony helps sweep away prejudice, my preconceived thoughts or my opinion, enable us to think honestly, and encourage us to search diligently. That's what I'm looking for here, to search diligently inside of me, within yourself. Then, if you wish, you can join us on that broad highway. And with this attitude, you cannot fail. That is a statement and a promise. The consciousness of our belief is sure to come to you. And then along with that, if we go to page 63, right above the third step prayer on 63 in the first paragraph, we're going to talk about having this new employer. 63, I'll just start from the top. When we sincerely took such a position, meaning that God is going to be my director, he's going to be my father, principal, and I'm going to be his agent, that he's going to run the show. So no longer am I going to be running the show. Now, there's something I'm going to say at the very end of this thing about managing my own life. But for this point, let's stay to the text here in page 63 in the first paragraph. We had a new employer, being all powerful. God, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. What is his work well? That's step 12. That's carrying this message and practicing these principles in all my affairs. And then it says, established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves. So see how self is dissipating, going away as we're doing this work? because of our little plans and designs, and more we became interested in seeing what we could do, contribute to life, thinking of others. That uncommon thinking was normally bring common thinking to it. My uncommon thinking becomes my uncommon thinking. And as we felt new power flow in, we will feel this power flowing in. And as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered that we could face life successfully and became conscious of his presence, we began to lose fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter. We were reborn. We're getting rid of self. Self is disappearing here. The feeling of the drink, back to 75 in the second paragraph. Just going to go through these promises quickly, but the last one I want to talk about here is, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. This is the beginning of us having this spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problems disappear will come strongly. We feel we are on, this is the promise I want to talk about, on a broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. Remember in 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. And remember back in 1 that we're powerless over alcohol and our lives are unmanageable. So telling me that my life, when I manage my own life, I don't do a very good job. So I'm turning my will and my life over to the care of God. But here in this promise right here, it says, we feel feel we are on the broad highway walking hand in hand with our creator, with the spirit of the universe. So he is the upper management. I am still part of the team of him. My job is to go to him in prayer and then hear what he has to say and then perform the action that it's supposed to have. So I'm still partially managing my life, but it's under the guidance and the direction of a power greater than myself. And sometimes that's through counsel. Sometimes that's through fellowship. Sometimes that's through sponsorship. But it's always about the higher power. So a lot of times you'll hear people like, well, God manages my life. And I'm not saying that that's not right. I'm just saying for me, it's talking about being hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. He's the upper management. I am still part of the management team. I'm just not running my life because, as we know on page 60 through 63, I don't do a very good job of that because of my motive. My motives are usually wrong. But today I have a relationship with power. And as I invite him in, I pray, and then I listen, and then I take action based on those things. And sometimes it's through counsel and go through sponsorship, as I pointed out here. But we're hand in hand. So that's all I wanted to talk about with that.
Well, all right. Thank you, David. Okay, so we're going to pick up new content then. So we're in the chapter 6 into action, page 75, in paragraph number 3, just following those promises of the 5th step David was covering there. Okay, here we go. Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we have omitted anything, for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? Abby, got anything?
I just have omitted, which is to leave out or unmentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I just want to point out a few things here. As always, want to take great care to read exactly what Bill is telling us. So, you know, he in the first paragraph on 75, we're culminating the direction on how to do a 5th step, right? Decide to hear a story, we waste no time, we got a written inventory, and then in the next paragraph, pocket our pride and go to it. So we've got these directions, and then we get this sort of beautiful little side step into these promises to entice us a little bit to jump into them. So then the presumption is we got through our 5th step, now what? Well, returning home, so presumably I'm at some comfortable place. Maybe I'm at my sponsor's home, or I'm at a room in a fellowship club or something. Coming back home, I got to find a place where I can be quiet for an hour. So direction, guys. This is what I do following my 5th step. And I will also say this. If it's a multi-day 5th step with my sponsees, I have them do this after each session. Okay? Just because we didn't get through it doesn't mean I don't think we should omit this part. I need to go back home and consider what I'm being asked to do. So go home where I can be quiet for an hour. It doesn't mean go home where the kids are going nuts and you dive right back into mom or dad mode, right? You're pulling your hair out. No, no. Quiet, alone, solitude for an hour. And then what? Thank God from the bottom of our heart. It's a little prayer of thanks, but thank God from the bottom of our heart. So the idea is this is a prayer with some depth and weight in and of itself, not just a, hey, thanks God, I got through this. From the bottom of my heart means with total sincerity and honestness. And what am I thanking him for? Well, that I know him better, that through this process of some self-discovery, right? This fact-finding and fact-facing and sharing it with God and sharing it with my sponsor, that through this, I'm going to have this new relationship with my creator, which is what several of those promises that David just recapped are talking about. You can take the book down from the shelf. You might already have it in your hands. I know at least one sponsee of David's literally took a video of himself on his phone, taking the book down off the shelf and sent it to David because, and this is Carlos, he wanted to make sure David knew he was doing everything mechanically according to the book. I do not require the people I'm taking the steps to do that, but they get a little meaningless gold star if they do. Right? That is not going to make anybody more sober, but I think it was cute that he did that. But here's the further direction. I'm finding our quiet solitude to spend and to consider. And you hear David say this constantly when we are asked questions. Don't rush to answer the question, because as soon as I answer a question, even if I feel like it's the right one, like, am I done? Am I done to good and for all? I want to say yes. Do I want to impress my sponsor? But I better consider this, because if I answer right away, my mind is going to be closed to further possibilities. So consider what's being asked. So carefully reading the 5 proposals, right? I'm going to go look at those first 5 steps again, and then I'm going to ask myself, all right, is our work solid so far? I'm going to say, as I always do, have I been thorough? Have I been honest? Are the stones properly in place? Did I do all the work? Did I do it in the right order? Right? Have I followed the instructions, the directions in the book? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Right? So Bill uses these building analogies. We know his grandfather was a mason and a builder of some fashion. So he uses these, and think about the foundation, right? To a building is what holds everything up above it. So if I cut that cement, so a lot of people in this group know about cutting substances, right? If I cut the cement, the foundation, I don't put enough cement in it. I put some sort of cement's pretty cheap, but some sort of even cheaper filler. Is the building going to collapse because the foundation is going to break apart or sink, right? That's what Bill is suggesting. And if we tried to make mortar without sand, what am I trying to do here? Am I trying to get into my program recovery if I haven't actually admitted complete defeat in one? Right? There's a duality in this. There's a combination of problem and solution. The solution doesn't help me if I don't agree with the problem. If I have the problem, I need the solution. And remember, what is a solution? What do we have on offer here? We have the 12th step, which is that we can help you get to God to have a spiritual awakening. We are providing a spiritual solution here. We are not providing a not drinking, not drugging, not cutting, not overeating solution. We are all focused in on the spiritual malady, the unmanageability. Because when we straighten out spiritually, right, everything else will come in line. We'll get physically better. We'll get mentally better. We'll get financially better, right? We'll be able to go back to work. Our relationships will get sorted out, all of that. But the essence of this is to get right spiritually, to get to God, and then continue to grow my relationship with God and help his kids.
Yeah, great job. I'm not going to be I try not to be too redundant, but yeah, we're talking about returning home. We find a place where we can be quiet for an hour. And David's right. This is an eternal place. I know guys that I've sponsored in halfway houses and 3/4 houses. It's kind of difficult to find that place. But this place that Bill's talking about is an eternal place. So go to the bathroom. If you only have one bathroom, don't be so selfish and tie up a bathroom for an hour. But go find a quiet place. Go sit in the backyard or wherever you can find. But this is an eternal place, just like meditation could be an eternal place. So, and then as David said, one of my guys taking the book down from the shelf, I'm pretty literal. If the book tells me take it down from the shelf, I tell my guys take it down from the shelf and send me a video. I want to make sure you did it. I'm not skipping. What are we talking about here? We're not skimping on anything here, especially the cement. What if that's part of the cement? I'm saying, send me a video. I just want to see it. It's just a little snippet of you putting the book back on the shelf and then you taking it back down. Just saying. I'm not saying it's going to keep you sober, but I believe in following the directions in this book because they're precise, specific, and they're clear-cut directions. So, and not omitting anything. And then, so to David's point here, you know, Bill's using these metaphors on construction. He does it a few times in the big book, of course. So we're talking about cement. If we went back to page 17 on the bottom of the page, we're talking about problem and solution. We have to have equal parts and know them. So we're also talking about here, Bill brings up the last sentence, which ends in the question mark. Have we tried to make mortar without sand? So what if mortar was fellowship? And what if sand was recovery? Do I have more recovery than I do fellowship? Or do I have more fellowship than I do recovery? I mean, I got to ask myself, let's talk about equal parts here. Like the triangle is an equilateral triangle, you know, of unity, recovery, and service. And I need to have so I can have the wholeness that the circle gives me, creates for me, as I do all three parts of its triangle. So for me, anyways, I don't want to skimp on anything and do like I'm a meeting maker. I just go to hundreds of meetings, but I don't practice these principles on my affairs. I'm not helping other people. You know, I'm certainly I'm gossiping. I'm doing all these things that are against. I'm not taking a 10-step inventory throughout the day. Spot check. I'm not doing my evening review at night. So I got to have equal parts. So that's just what my goal is here. To set out to follow these specific, precise, and clear-cut directions that Bill's outlined in this big book. And they bring up things like cornerstone. And if you don't know where that's at, and if you didn't study this book up to this point, I was like, what are they talking about? What's a cornerstone? What's a keystone? Well, Bill talks about it on page 47 in the second paragraph. If you don't mind holding the page on 75 and coming with me over to page 47, we're in the second step, we agnostics, second paragraph. We need to ask ourselves but one short question. And by the way, this is the second question that Bill asked us in the second step. And it says we need it as a must. We must ask ourselves but one short question. Do I now believe? Or am I even willing to believe that there's a power greater than myself? And then it gives me the answer. As soon as a man can say that he does believe or is willing to believe, we emphatically assure him he's on his way. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, the cornerstone on top of the foundation in the building is wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. I'm not going to do it, but many times in the book, I can't remember how many times Bill references to go to the spiritual experience in the back of the book. Not for the differences between an awakening and an experience, to show you that they're the exact same thing. They just happen differently. That's all. And so this is it might be 6 times. I'm not sure, but don't write that down in your book because I'm probably wrong. But I'm just saying. But the thing is there. So we know where the cornerstone now is in the book. So where in the world is the keystone? Well, that's on page 62. In the third paragraph that we talk about the keystone here, and it says, am I correct there? Yeah. Yes. So this is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. Why? Oh, here's the answer. Didn't work. Thank you, Bill. Next, order of things. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life that I'm creating, God was going to be my director. He is our principal. We are his agents. He is our father. We are his children. Most good ideas, which are simple ideas, and these concepts, relationships with this power, is the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we pass to freedom. Next page. Oh, not next page. Just stop. There's a period. But this is the definition. Again, if I just read this book and went to that part, I would not know what the cornerstone and the keystone is. This is why it's so important for me to study the big book. And by the way, someone told me this a long time ago. The big book is a textbook, and it's meant to be read and studied. So that's why we do it. So that's all I got. Thanks.
So we're going to pick up on the top of 76, right? Next page. I just want to point out, we just read this paragraph, which gave us very specific direction about how to spend an hour after the conclusion of my 5th step. So if I was thorough and honest in my fifth step, and I go and I spend this quiet hour, and I do conclude, I consider over the course of the hour that yes, it's thorough and honest in all 5 steps, all 5 proposals to this point, then at the top of 76, it's going to say, if we can answer to our satisfaction, we look at step 6. Now, I'm going to pause right here before we continue, because I want to demonstrate something else here that we're going to talk about, and we'll probably circle back on this a couple of times. This top paragraph is going to be talking about step 6. The second paragraph is going to be talking about step 7. The third paragraph, we're going to be into steps 8 and 9. So we've got, wrapping up the 5th step with the promises, right? An hour of consideration, which is the paragraph. Then after that hour, I tell the people I'm guiding through the steps, call me up. You answer to your satisfaction, right? We talk about this first paragraph. We say that 7-step prayer together. Let's say that phone call lasts another hour, which probably doesn't even, it's probably more like 20 minutes. 1 to 2 hours after my 5th step, I am now on to step 8. Whenever I meet someone and they're working through the steps for the first time, I'm like, what step you on? And like, I've been on step 6. I'm working on step 6. I'm like, unless you're within the 2-hour window after you finish your 5th step, to me, for a newcomer, you're not working on 6. You're probably stuck back on 1. You're probably still wondering, are you powerless or not? Which then makes me wonder, were you thorough and honest in 4 and 5? Right? I got to hustle. I got to get into 8. After I hustle through these steps, right? David's always talking about this. We got from our buddy Howard. We don't know when that window of opportunity to help a newcomer is going to slam shut and they're going to go back out, because we go back out, we're very comfortable with the devil we know. We got to move swiftly. Get through the steps. Get to God. Have my spiritual awakening by 9. Start living in the disciplines at 10, 11, and 12. Start sponsoring. Then, as your sponsor, let's go back through. Let's slow it down. Then let's go word by word, line by line. Then when we rework 6 and 7 together, we can dig deep. We can go into the 12 and 12. We can get into other, fellowship literature, really explore the depths of it. But guys, we're talking 3 paragraphs from the time I conclude my 5th step with my sponsor till when I'm on my 8th step. Let us not waste time. And I'm not, it sounds like kind of a jerk to say this, but I'm not interested in my sponsee, the person I'm step guiding, their opinion on how quickly we should move. They do not have any experience working a program recovery to have an educated perspective on how they ought to get through this. I'm trying to help save their life. Most newcomers are doing everything they can to still kill themselves, right? We must hustle. I don't know if you want to say anything about this conceptually, David, before I start reading again.
Well, I guess maybe just pay attention to what we're going to be looking at here, especially in 6. So, and I'll comment on 7 when we get there. But so, what is different here? There's a dramatic writing switch, dramatic switch in writing. So before this, think about it. I'm powerless, I'm selfish, lack of power, dishonest, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity, full of fear. Like all these things seem to be a bit of a beatdown. Now we're going to talk about power flowing in. We're going to talk about actually real power flowing in all the time in my life here. Not fancy or like real power, like having a relationship with power. And as David reads this paragraph, I'll bring home more stuff about it. But again, 5, when does 6 start? Right after the hour, like right away. This is so true. And Howard does a study on this, and we study with Howard. The window of opportunity. This is still part of the window of opportunity. Getting through the steps the first time with the new guy. Get them to God quickly. We have plenty of time to go back and study this text. He brought up, David brought up one of my sponsees, Carlos. He's, I think, 3 years sober. And David and I used to do an in-person big book study and a deep one, just like this one here. And when we got done, we turned it over to someone else when we went through it a couple of times. And then they just turned it over to Carlos. He's doing this thing, right? Because it's not an option. It's an obligation. I'm not saying that everyone here needs to do a big book study, but he's comfortable enough with the big book because we went through it quickly, but then we went back and studied it line by line, word by word, dictionary, 1938 dictionary, to pick out the specific words. So we were true to the what Bill's writing in the book. So yeah, what I really get excited about now, and I bring this is now we can start feeling powerful, and a big adaptation is going to take place here.
So we had a bunch of questions right on the bottom of 75 to go home and consider for an hour. And then at the conclusion of the hour, top of 76, if we can answer to our satisfaction, so we feel we've been thorough and honest on everything to this point, we then look at step 6. And as I said, if I can't answer to my satisfaction at the end of that hour, I assume the person's got a first step problem still. I don't care that they concluded 5, right? Mm-hmm. And if it's not a first step problem, then where else did they skimp along the way? But fundamentally, my problem is always and only the first step. Because if I really believe I'm powerful, powerless, excuse me, that's a bad slip there. If I really believe I'm powerless and my life's unmanageable, I have no power and my only way out is a spiritual solution, then I will do all this other work. But if I still question that, if I think I can still hold on, if I think I can still shoot the angles, maybe I'm not going to be satisfied. But I'm going to presume that we can answer to our satisfaction. So then we look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Question to consider, guys. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can he now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing.
I have indispensable and objectionable. Indispensable is defined as impossible to be done without, and objectionable is displeasing or offensive.
Go ahead, start us off, David.
Okay, so step 6 is right between 5 and 7, right? It's like, it sounds silly to say that, but I'm not working this step, although I work these steps. Why? So I can find a power that can solve all my problems. So this is part of the work in Alcoholics Anonymous, still the same. But it's talking about what I need to have here, emphasizing a must of willingness. It's indispensable. That is a must. I must have this willingness. And it says, and here's the question, the first question. Question 1, I change it, are we now ready? I'm going to change it to I'm I ready to let God remove all these things that we are admitted objectionable? What things are we talking about? We're talking about everything in the 4th column. Unless you do a 5-column inventory, it's a 5th column. Doesn't matter to me. Joe and Charlie do it. Nobody better than them guys. David and I do a 4-column inventory. Okay, well, things are objectionable. Then the next question here is, can he now take them all, every one? Yes or no? Or another question I could add to that thing is, will he take them from me? So I got to ask myself this question. Will he take them from me? I mean, is God infinite God? So, I just got done listening to Herb K do a talk about infinite. We can show you the definition in the dictionary, but we can't really explain it. Can't really explain infinite, right? No beginning, no end, right? Can't explain it. I'm finite. I'm finite, but God is the whole, the center of the circumference is this, and the emptiness, the hole inside of me needs to be filled with something. It needs to be filled with God. And when I fill it with God here, I believe for me now, he can now take them, all of them. And if we still cling to something, what do we do here? Bill gives us, he asks the question and he always follows it up with the answer. He says, if we still cling to something, we don't let go, we pray. When it says ask, we pray. Ask God to help us be willing. If I'm clinging to something, whatever that might be, I need to be willing to do all those things. I think that's all I got on that.
I guess I'll just add one simple concept too. So step 6 is we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. That's the short form that's written in the 12 steps. And, I'm always hammering thorough and honest. My feeling is, based on my personal experience of working steps, getting recovered, is that maybe, people hate when some people dislike if I say easiest step, hardest step. 6th step, to me, easiest step. to me.
Mhm.
Why? Because if I was thorough and honest in 4 and 5, and I look at that fourth column, that was my experience, my first inventory, I was so entirely ready to have God remove my defects of character. And when I take that phrase in isolation, obviously it's a more spiritual, sort of larger consideration. But coming through, like I said, first time, plain and simple, I was embarrassed and humiliated and ashamed of that fourth column. And I was so relieved in the moment. I was starting to get some freedom that I shared it with my sponsor and obviously shared it with God, that I was entirely ready. I just looked at the contents. I'm like, God, whoo, please take this away. And David and I have talked about this too. What's the hardest step? And I know David has said 3, at least current thinking, right? Stop playing God. Can't really argue with that. But I often say 7 is the hardest step for me, because it's one thing for me in 6 to be entirely ready to have God take all the defects of character away. But in 7, I actually have to ask him to do that for me. And it's a 2-man game, because God's not going to do for me what I can participate in and or do for myself. I have to stop behaving like a jerk. I have to stop acting out in all those behaviors. It's always an steep uphill climb, and God will get behind me and push me if I start walking, right? 6, very easy. Black and white, that fourth column. 7, though, when I really want to let him go, I can be ready, but do I really want to be free of them? It's tough for me, and it's still tough for me many times today.
Yeah, let me just jump back to one
Please.
other thing at the bottom of that with that cling. So if we still cling to something, we're not let go. We ask God to help us be willing. This is what I do, and I don't know if all my sponsees like me or not. I hope they do. I don't care if they do, to be honest with you. If they don't drink and die, that's the goal here. So
Yeah.
it's just like what I'm looking for. But this is something I go to a lot. I go there a lot with this stuff. And at the end of this thing is when I go this. Let's go back to page 61 of our big book, if you guys want to bounce around with me a little bit for a second, please. And go to the first full paragraph, but go to the very last sentence. So it's the very first full paragraph that starts out what usually happens. But let's go down to all the way to the bottom to the last sentence. Is he not even in his best moments? So my best motives, a producer of confusion rather than harmony. The reason why I bring that up to people is because my whole life I was always a producer of confusion. And I hated, loathed myself when I got here. Yes, I knew I had a drinking drug problem, but I loathed the human being that I came into today. And I had bits and pieces in sobriety of what it looked like to have harmony in my life, like not getting into a fight with my wife, treat my wife like a child of God, put her well-being, welfare in front of mine, being a father to my kids. I had moments of that, but I couldn't string them together without all these steps and without the power of God in my life. So when I take you back there as a sponsee, I take myself back there too. And I ask myself this question: am I, even in my best moments, on my own power, am I a producer of confusion rather than harmony? So then go back to page 76. This will help me anyways with the prayer to ask God to be willing, because I'm sick and tired of being me. I need to be rid of all the things, and I don't know the difference between my assets and my liabilities. Let's be real clear. Don't know. I don't know what liability you may need in your life. I can give you a bunch of them that might help you out. And you go, dude, I'm never doing that. That knucklehead did it, and he harmed some people. Not doing that. But I don't know the difference, and I don't have the power to remove them anyways. So that's just what I do. I just like to connect dots in the big book. I think Bill is a wizard, a mystic, and how he wrote this book. And I don't know how he did it, but I'm still amazed every day.
So we are asked to consider more questions. You see there's a little trend here in the post 5th step into 6, right? A bunch of questions. And then when ready, so I guess if I can answer those to my satisfaction as well, when ready, we say something like this: my Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. That's the amen we've been waiting to say since the 3rd step. We have then completed step 7. Abby, you got anything from that paragraph?
I just have defect, which means lack
Great.
of something, blemish, or fault.
And David alluded to this right before I read this. He was talking about assets and liabilities and our complete inability to have discernment, judgment, evaluation around them. And that's really true. And I'm not even going to attempt to do it here because I will butcher it so badly. But a speaker that I love, Teresa F., I'm sure a bunch of you have probably heard her speak, who's amazing. On a recent share, she went on this, I think she was sharing on 7. She went on this extended jag about we're so incapable of being able to tell our assets from our liabilities. The things that we might consider liabilities, like anger or selfishness, and again, don't take me directly. I just remember the sort of gestalt of it. She gave these great examples of how we could actually use these productively to help God's children. And it was really mind blowing for me because I can just think about these defects of character. And to me, I'm a very black and white thinker. I think that's sort of the addict's mind. And I was like, oh, this is bad. This is bad. This is bad. But how do I know? How do I really know what my assets and liabilities are? And by the way, you guys know this concept of assets and liabilities is an accounting concept, right? So Bill's shifting from building to accounting, right? And my trade is I sell accounting software. So I'm a little bit of an amateur bean counter. Here's the thing about asset accounts and liability accounts. They're supposed to have a debit balance as an asset and a credit balance as a liability. But sometimes circumstances change and those things can go past 0. And your assets accounts can have a credit balance and your liabilities can have a debit. So my point is, even if I think I've got clarity about what my assets and my liabilities are today, it could change tomorrow. They could change back the day after. They could be decidedly different a week, a month, a year from now. It is not up to me to, in solitude, try to be in judgment or discernment about what's what. I've got to get direction from God around this.
Yeah, so the third step prayer started back on page 63 in the second paragraph, as David said, and there was no amen until now. So let's see what that looks like. If you guys don't mind, let's go back to page 63 in the second paragraph. Let me read the third step prayer, and then I'm going to continue the 7th step prayer, if it's all right with the group. So it says, 63, second paragraph, we are now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker, as we don't understand him, that's just my writing, God, I offer myself to thee to build me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help with thy power, thy love, thy way of life. May I do thy will always. No amen. Let's go to page 76 and read the 7th step prayer now. And before we read it, there's a sentence that starts before the prayer. And it says, when ready. What is when ready? When I am done clinging to things, when I'm done clinging to the things that I won't let go of, that's when ready. That's when I say the 7th step prayer. Then we say something like this. And I love how Bill says we say something like this. I've heard many people rewrite the 3rd step prayer to whatever way you want to write it, right? Yeah, I mean, and I've seen people do the 7th step prayer. My sponsor writes amazing prayers. He can read this book and pull prayers out of this book that aren't really there with the word ask. And ask is usually a definition of a prayer coming or meaning to pray. But my sponsor is really good about doing that. But anyways, when ready, when I'm done clinging, I pray for the willingness. I'm done clinging to things. Then I say, my creator. So this is about a relationship with my power, the God in my life. I am now willing that you should have, please circle the word all of me, good and bad. Circle good, circle bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here. So that implies there's going to be some action on my part. That's going to be 8 and 9, 10, 11, and 12. Just a little heads up. As I go out from here to do God's bidding. Not my bidding, no one else's. This is about God. This is all about a power in my life today. I am inviting God in with that thirst, God in with any of my prayers all day long. If I can't remember the Serenity Prayer, the short version of the Serenity Prayer for me, it's help. He's listening. God is closer to my breath, in my experience, and he just shows up. But I need to invite him in. And when I'm inviting him in with the third step and I'm ending with the amen here in the seventh step prayer, the blame game's over now.
Mm.
The blame game is over. I'm not blaming. It's not my mom and dad's fault. Why isn't it my mom and dad's fault? My mom and dad abandoned me when I was 14 years old. I had to sleep on other people's couches in the back of vans, in alleys, and all these other things. I didn't get the things that I didn't get the love that I deserved as a kid. You know what that is? That's a resentment. You know what resentment is? The number one offender of alcoholics. It kills more people than anything else.
Mm.
I am free of that. By doing this inventory, by doing this work and not cleaning these things today, guess what that resentment is? It's a memory. You know, why is it a memory? Because I've learned how to forgive those people for not what they did not know what they did, what they knew. They did not know. First of all, there's nothing I can do. My adopted mother is dead. She's not coming back from the grave, so she can make an amends to me. That ain't gonna happen. But I have forgiven her for what had happened in my life. Did I need it? Maybe I needed to have this because the life that I was living was the path that I put myself on after that fact. And alcohol and drugs was for me my solution until one day that it wasn't. And then when I got sober and I could see to my innermost self that I was a real alcoholic, then I started on a path of what God maybe had intended for me all along. And my life today is full of freedom. And Mark Houston uses this. How free do you want to be?
Mm.
How free do you want to be? This right here, this third step prayer is the selfless prayer. This seventh step prayer is me not blaming anyone else anymore and inviting God in. This means I have a relationship with power all day long. Like I experience power all day long. I'm having conversations with people and I feel the presence of God in my life. Today we had my youngest grandson over who is 10 months old. And dude, there's nothing like the love that I have for my grandchildren. I have 3 grandchildren. My oldest one is going to be 19. He's going off to college and we went for preview Monday and Tuesday. We were down at the college that he's going to go to. I got to spend time with my grandson. He lives with me. I mean, he's been with me since he's 5. But what an experience because I could feel the presence of God and I didn't harm anyone. I wasn't, I just read on page 61 in the last paragraph. You think I'd have that memorized because I go through it so much. My best moments, I was not a producer of confusion. I was a producer of harmony. I'm not in my own power because on my best moments, I can't do that. When I invited God in, harmony all weekend long. Did everything go great? I don't know. I was focused on harmony. None of the other stuff was any of my business. It was fine. My grandson had a wonderful time. He drove. It was a 2-hour drive on the way home because I wanted him to get used to driving on the highway. And he talked a Blue Streak all the way back about his experience with preview. Dude, and he's going to be a musician, education, and I can't remember the other one. Anyways, so he's got 2 minors, but and he talked about it the whole time. You know where I was? I was at my sobriety station, right in the passenger seat at my sobriety station, listening to what he had to say and not interjecting a whole lot, just nodding my head and smiling and wiping a tear away from time to time. That is the freedom that Mark Houston's talking about, I believe.
Thanks, David. Yeah, and I'm glad David reread both those prayers and read them back to back. And what's critical about these 2 prayers? What is the intention of them? Because I'm asking God to help me, but I am asking God to help me to help him to help his children. Right? Because, and I'm sure I did this when we talked about the third step some time ago. I was going to read it again. If you go back on 63, so David read it to us properly. This is the third step prayer that I want to say, right? Is a selfish alcoholic and addict. I'm going to say, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me. And please relieve me of the bondage of self. And please take away my difficulties. The end. All right. I just want what I want. I don't want to do it for God, what you want to do, or for you want me to help other people. And same thing in the 7th step back on 76. So my creator, I'm now willing, you should have all of me, at least the bad stuff, and pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character, and grant me strength. Amen. Right? I just want, because I'm selfish, self-seeking, right? Self-centered, self. That is not the intent of these prayers. The entire point and purpose of all those clauses in each part of both those prayers is I'm asking from God so that I can be his agent exclusively. That's my entire purpose now, guys. Right? Self must get rejected from these things. And Scott put a really nice little addition here in the chat if you didn't notice. And I love this because it's David and I are always trying to bring up the timing references, the temporal references. When do I do this? Well, there's a whole bunch of nows in all this stuff that we're reading, right? we got through the fifth step, and then what happens? Well, right after the fifth step, I'm told to go home, spend my hour, right? We're badgering us about this. And then after an hour, I ought to be satisfied. So then I'm immediately in a 6. I do a little bit more consideration, and then I'm immediately in a 7. Like I said, that process from completing the 5th step to completing the 7th step, if I'm satisfied, it's like an hour to 2 hour process max. And then on my page flipped back on 76. Now, so we just because we just completed step 7. Now, so how soon is now? Immediate. Now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. So we're going to look at a couple of them seemingly together. We have a list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. Underline, highlight, circle. We made it a list when we took inventory. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. So let's just pause right there. I mean, this is really 8. I mean, there's a little bit more that sort of gets interspersed, but we kind of move mostly on to step 9 content coming after this. So let's pause right here. Ab, do you have anything in that first part of the paragraph?
I have self-appraisal, which is judgment, evaluation, assessment, or estimation of oneself.
Thank you. Go ahead, David. Get us started.
Okay, so yeah, thank you, Scott, for putting that in there, because now is a time frame. It's like anytime he's putting these things in there, it's not about maybe when I get my ducks in a row, or maybe when these consequences clear themselves out. No, this is not what we're talking about here. This is already, I've turned my will and my life over to the care of God in 3. Now the blame game is over with here in 7. It's like now there's more, we need more action. Just when I thought I was going to be able to rest a little bit, you did just rest for 1 hour. Time to get back to work here, buddy. You punch the time clock, get back in. So, which we find with faith without works is dead. So that's a promise and a prayer, right? And if you know anything about Dr. Bob, he's part of the Oxford group, which Bill was kind of amazed that he was a part of that. But so Bob had faith, but had no works. He had no idea what the problem was until Bill Wilson came in and visited him. That allowed him to do the Oxford group 6 steps that allowed him to understand what the problem was, that once he started drinking, that he couldn't control the amount or manage the amount that he drank. And once he stopped, he couldn't stay stopped. And he's like, he was amazed. This is the first time he's ever heard this, but he had plenty of faith. You know, he's in these prayer groups. He would go to these prayer groups with all the Henrietta Sebring and all these people that every week they were, Bob, can we pray for you? Yeah, we'd love for you. And he'd go home and get drunk, mashed out of his mind. And then it says, right after that, it says, let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of all persons we have harmed. Why do I have that list? Because my sponsor has been making that list of all the people that I've harmed. You know, you put down, when I'm listening to his 4th step or her 4th step, or their 4th step, they're writing down their sister, their brother, their mom, their dad. Oh, put yourself down too. Page 61, it's in there. I'm just saying, put yourself on the list. But it says, but you're not others in step 9, just so you know. We'll get to that. Just saying. Because if you harm yourself, if you got to go to jail, you might have to carry the message inside the wall. Just saying. Sometimes that's true. I did. So anyways, we have made a list of all we have harmed and to whom we're willing to make amends. So again, we're going to pray for willingness, make amends. We made them when we took our inventory, our 4-step. We suggested ourselves this drastic self-appraisal, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage. This is the first intent of the 9th step. This is the first time of acknowledgement what we're doing here. We're repairing the damage done in the past.
Hold on a sec.
That's
I didn't read the rest of it yet. If you're gonna,
oh, okay.
you,
Sorry.
if you want to just read the rest of the paragraph and then roll, you can.
No, go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Do it, please.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but let me just get
Sorry
it
about
read.
that. Okay.
No, I know it's weird when we stop in the middle. So as David was just starting to thunder, now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which is accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. Italics, remember, it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. All right, go, David. Keep rolling.
Okay. All right. I will do that. I want to. All right.
Yeah,
so
please.
So repair the damage. That's amends. What is an amends? I'm sorry. I won't ever do that again. No, that's not what that is. It's not an apology. If we were going to amend the Constitution to our country, whatever country you live in, you're not apologizing to the Constitution. You're making an amendment to the Constitution. You're amending. You're changing something. Amend means to change. You know, and when I make these amends, I'm gonna briefly go over what an amends looks like for me. When I make an amends to someone, I go to them with whatever harm, the damage, try to repair the damage done. Say, for instance, I did this with my ex-wife. When I went to her, I said, Tammy, these are the harms that I have caused you. And it took me about 10 or 15 minutes to go over these things. And she listened because I made my approach. I made my appointment out of respect to her. Appointment is a big deal. I don't just like barge in on her. I need to let her know what I'm doing. And I did that. And I sat down with her and I said, these are the things I did. And it took about 10 minutes. Then when I got done with that, I said, are there any other harms that I've caused you that I'm not aware of? Then I shut up for 45 straight minutes and listened to all the other things that I had done that I wasn't aware of. Self-delusion. And then when I get done with that, I said to her, how can I make all this right? You know what she said to me? Please never tell me what to do ever again. I've been divorced for 34 years and I have a good relationship with her. You know, we don't talk all the time because our daughters are grown, but I've never told her what to do again. That's how I keep my amends with her. It's not my job. She doesn't need me to do that. I didn't even know I was doing those things. And that's how I keep my amends with her. And that's how I practice these principles in all my affairs in her life. Even when she comes to me and says, what do you think I should do in that situation? You know what I do? I said, I don't know. What do you think you should do in that situation? Not the end all be all, not her God. And then it says, we attempt to sweep away the debris, the garbage, as we make our amends, which is accumulated out of our effort to live our life on self-will. Remember back on page 62, I believe it is? Yes. Page 62, if you want to go to it. Second paragraph. Hold your page on 76. Just in case I have forgotten already. And I do. Page 62, second paragraph. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves. The alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so, which is delusional. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of the selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible. And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. So this is about a relationship of power, of course, and I'm going to take power in this ninth step. I'm not. So if I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, whatever Anonymous I'm going into, when I looked at the steps on the wall and I worked the steps off the wall, which I got absolutely no results from, the first step I wanted to do was 9, because I didn't know what amends was. And I just explained to you what I believe that it is, change. And no one was going to listen to my sorries because I would just wore that out. It meant nothing anymore. It's watered down. So this is about having a change inside of me. This is about my actions will tell you whether or not I'm changing. And then when I make my appointments and I sit down with them and I find out that my troubles have been my own making, I'm not there taking their inventory. That's a little bit farther in the book. It says, after that, it says back to page 76, third paragraph. If we have the will to do this, what do? we pray again.
Mm.
We ask until it comes. That is a prayer. Don't you love Bill?
Mm.
He's not telling us what to do. He's telling us to take this to God. This is about building a relationship with this power, having courage to call on it so that I can have this faith. Because now it's faith with works, and it does. And then the last thing says, a reminder, remember, because I forget quickly, we would, he said, remember we agreed at the beginning, we would go to any links for victory over alcohol. Just a reminder. That's what I'm supposed to be doing here. So how free do you want to be?
So I'll just underscore a couple things too, and then we'll wrap up for the week. Again, as I so frequently like to point out, the language is so important. I always like to focus on like the plain language, the mechanics, the instructions. The goal of the spiritual experience and spiritual life is so much greater, right? It's more than just the mechanics and the instructions, but I have to do the work. I have to follow the instructions. I have to do the mechanical things that I believe with pure earnestness. When I do execute the mechanics, miracles evolve out of that. That was my experience. I have to sort of, I don't know, my experience was just do what I was told, so to go through the motions. And then they became meaningful. I probably shared this before. I used to take Kung Fu, and there's an old like Kung Fu or karate expression. I don't know, it's from one of the martial arts. They say, there's like the student is doing like a movement, and he says, Master, Sensei, what is this movement that I'm doing? How does it help me in my art form? And the master says, do it 10,000 times and the meaning will come to you. Right. I mean, it's another sort of spiritual idea. So I must do the work, take the action, do the mechanics, and more is going to be revealed. Right. I am going to get some spiritual growth out of this. Right. But it's all about, I love that Scott brought up that now. It's the action. It is now. This is not about waiting for the right time. This is not a program procrastination and waiting and seeing. I must get busy and I must stay busy. I need more action, right? Because faith without works is dead. All of my intentions, all of my belief systems, all of my faith systems, all of that, the essence of it is what I am doing to promote and to achieve and to grow, not how I'm sitting in a Zen position saying Om to myself. That stuff's good too. But how am I being active in my belief and in my faith, right? And then next week, we'll show just at the top of the call, we've got a little 8-step worksheet like we have for the 4th step that we went through. So we'll show you the 8-step worksheet that David and I use if you're interested. Of course, it's on purposeofthisbook.com. But I've got this list. I don't have to go search far and wide for it. I already wrote it in 4. I re-summarize it in 8. That's what I have the people that I'm working with do. And sometimes there's some stuff that needs to go on the 8-step list that didn't come out of the resentment inventory, the fear inventory, or the sex harms conduct inventory. There's just other stuff that it wasn't related to any of that, where maybe I broke a law. I wasn't resentful. I just did something bad because I was a jerk, right? Or I stole something. Did I steal it out of fear? Did I steal it out of resentment? No, I just stole it because I was greedy and selfish. That needs to go on the list. So there is some fill in the blank, but in my experience, I don't know, 80% of the 8-step is probably related to, we're already in that 4-step inventory, right? And it's just reminding us we subjected ourselves to this drastic self-appraisal, this fact-finding and fact-facing process. And now it's time to go out and do something about this. And to be clear, this is the program of recovery. Steps 1 through 9 is how I get recovered, past tense, how I get healthy, not cured, but healthy. It's how I get to God. And then how I stay recovered are those daily discipline steps of 10 through 12. So think about this. As alcoholics and addicts, we want instant gratification. So guess what you get to tell your sponsees? By your 9th step, you will be recovered. Because then we're going to instantly be into 10, 11, and 12. So 75% of the way, we can promise recovery. How? If we're thorough and honest. And I'll just pause it there. We've said enough for tonight. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you guys very much.
Really quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
So I wanted to look up amend in the dictionary, and it says to make right, to correct, to change in any way for the better, or to reform oneself.
Good definition. Thank you.
So that's great. And I'm not correct. I don't mean to correct you here, but they don't use the word amend in the big book. They use the word plural, amends.
Amends.
So amend. So there's a difference, right? Singular to plural. So anyways, but thank you, Abby, very much. And Rob, thank you like always. Brother, you're the best, man.